Thank you. Okay, so at Glide, as I mentioned, we're focused on helping companies build custom software to help their internal operations for the most part. We're not focused on entrepreneurs with an idea. We're focused on businesses with a problem. If you're not familiar with Glide, it basically comes in three parts. There's a data editor that is a lot like Airtable, that can connect to a Google Sheet, an Airtable, an Excel file, or a database, where you can manage the data, create relations between tables, and add calculations. There's a layout editor that's very high level. In Glide, you don't pick colors or pixel values or draw rectangles on a screen. You describe at a high level the functionality of the application, and Glide creates an adaptive interface for you that when it's installed on a mobile phone on the home screen is a mobile UI. When you open it in your browser, it's a widescreen UI. You don't have to think about that. Every business doesn't need to reinvent these design principles for every piece of software. They should come automatically. That's our opinion in Glide. And then there's an action editor where you can use logic to branch and have steps run in sequence to call out to third-party services and modify the data. These are examples of our customers. Home Shield Scotland, powering a home improvement company. I think they have 100 internal users. Champion Industries, they are auditing refrigerators and large equipment in a warehouse where they're taking pictures, answering checklists, and doing QA. And Manbo is founded in Paris in 1844. They are a retail business that makes and sells shoes, and they run their operations on Glide to track their finances and their inventory. These are the kind of customers that we're trying to put tools in the hands of so they can build software to power their business. So every company is trying to figure out what they do with AI. And Glide is a tools company. We build developer tools for all of you to build software. So we asked ourselves, there's two opportunities here, but we're a small startup and we have to prioritize. We can use AI to make Glide easier, or we can use AI to make Glide, what this should say is we can use AI to make what you build with Glide more powerful. And the theme of 2023 for us since last year at the conference has been to make our platform more powerful. Because our customers already say it's easy. They say, can you make it more powerful? So we've been making it more powerful. And when I tell people we put AI in Glide, they said, oh, you mean I can type, make me a screen so I can sell shoes, and it will make a screen full of pictures of shoes, and I can launch that on Product Hunt? No, we are putting very subtle, and it is very subtle, I hope I can communicate it today, subtle, powerful features inside of Glide that use AI in the calculation and the data layer for decision making and categorization. So some things I'm not going to talk about in this talk. We're not going to talk about generating images, AI-assisted blog posts, copywriting, and what I just mentioned, prompt to design. I think every tool will get this in some form, but we don't think this is not going to empower a business building custom software to do something really remarkable. And when we talk to businesses who are trying to figure out how they can adopt AI, we see this sort of continuum of sophistication, where at the low end, maybe you're buying ChatGPT Pro licenses for your employees and saying, do something with this, like figure this out. And what we're trying to figure out is, how do we get AI into business processes? So Glide AI takes the form of new computed columns in our data editor. Like I said, the data editor in Glide is kind of like an Airtable, where you can see all of your data, and you can augment it with calculations. We've added a layer of calculations, all powered by AI. But these names, text to date, text to choice, image to text, they don't scream AI power, but they are subtle new capabilities that combine in really interesting ways. So here's an example. Maybe you have a form collecting customer feedback. You could add a Glide AI column to just summarize each piece of feedback. You could do sentiment analysis just to categorize whether the feedback was positive, negative, or neutral, so you can prioritize it. You could categorize it by which team should respond to it. And you could even feed in AI information about all the people who work in your company and say, please assign this feedback to the best person for the response. And it could assign it. So what I'm trying to show here is we're trying to use AI to create new capabilities inside of software to make decisions faster and to organize information for people, not just to generate images or new text. So I'm just going to demo. I'm going to try to show you what I mean. This is kind of abstract, high-level language, but hopefully I can show you what I mean. Okay, this is Glide. It's our dashboard. We have all of your apps. And we're going to build an app to review feature requests that we actually get from customers for Glide. This is an empty app. In the data editor, I'm going to connect. This is something we're launching next week. Glide started as a tool to turn spreadsheets into software. But as our customers have grown, we see two types of businesses. Businesses small enough to run on spreadsheets still, and businesses that run on databases. So we're launching our SQL connector next week for, I think, 6 different sources. I'm going to connect to a Postgres database, which contains all of our feature requests being recorded in HubSpot. And all of our customer information as well, but we won't show that. These dancing worms are meant to distract you while the network loads. I'll switch over to my phone. Okay. So we've connected to a SQL database. And this is the data. These are the feature requests in Glide. And before I get into the AI part, I'll just show you. I'm going to say, make a new screen from this data. And Glide will just look at the data in the SQL database and will try to construct something for me to start with, making a lot of assumptions. In Glide, we make the assumption that someone building software for a business is not sort of overly concerned with what shade of gray this is and how it differs from this shade of gray, what font to use for these labels. You make all these decisions at a very high level. So I'll say, show me this information as a list, and I want to see, as the title of each item, the feature request. As the description of each item, I want to see the details put in by our sales team. And for the image, I don't have an image for these. And now I can search. I want to see Airtable feature requests. And you don't write any SQL. All of the interactions you're doing in Glide, sorting, changing the view, doing search, Glide is writing all of the SQL automatically and querying the database for you. And you can add and edit all of this information and it's synchronizing. And this is just the default appearance. I could spend a lot of time customizing all of this. And I'll just make a couple small customizations. I want to see the feature request name. And as the subtitle, I will put the details again. And for the page title, I don't want the ID. I want the feature request name. So now I have this, and I want to call this requests. Okay. So now I have this connected to my SQL database. It could search millions of rows. I could distribute this to everyone in my company. And now not just our sales team has access to the feature requests coming in from customers, but all 50 people at Glide, for example, could just put this on their phone or on their desktop and look at this anytime. But how can AI help here? So one thing I'd like to do is help my colleagues understand how these features relate to Glide and how they could be used. So I'll just do a simple demo first. I'm going to go into this data coming in from SQL. And to the right of the feature request, I'm going to add an AI-powered calculation. So I'm adding a column. We have many column types. There's simple ones like text, date. There's computations like math, text formatting. And then these AI columns are what make up Glide AI. So first I'll just generate some text. And I'm going to disconnect the input. And first I have to put the microphone down. I'm going to write the instructions for how we want the AI to behave. And then we're going to give it the input to get it to behave in that way. Okay. So the sales team is just putting in a brief name of a feature. So in this first example, I'm telling the AI that it's a product manager working on Glide. and given a feature request, summarize in 5 numbered steps how the user would use it. So now we have this AI calculated column, and it's doing for each feature request, it's running through an AI system and following those instructions. And I'll go back to the layout of the app, and I'll just add, so you can see it clearly, a hint component, which is just a piece of text with some accent color behind it. And I'm going to connect this to that column we just created. I didn't have the good sense to name. So now every single feature request that's entered by our sales team in this SQL database, pick a random one, sign-in screen customization, is going to get an AI-authored explanation of how this could be used in our product. And in this case, the model is GPT 3.5, which has indexed much of our documentation. Our marketing website knows about the no-code ecosystem. So when you instruct it to behave like a PM, it actually has this kind of world knowledge. But you can always give it more context. I could say, you are a PM working at Glide, glideapps.com, because there are other companies called Glide. I might want to tune it a little bit more. So this is describing how a user would use this feature. It could be more or less accurate. That's kind of a simple one. And these are being generated and cached as you browse around the application. And I happen to pick the exact same one again. But if I go into Xano database, that's already there because we calculated on the previous screen. If I go to one that we haven't looked at yet, on page 5, a data center in Malaysia. You could see there was sort of a delay as this was generated. But one thing we do in Glide AI that's pretty interesting is you can see I'm gonna open this item again, and it could be me or someone else in the company. The prompt is cached because the inputs haven't changed. So that's one sort of interesting performance and cost control optimization in a system like Glide AI, where you're building with AI in an application where you'd want to get that performance benefit. I'll show you one more sort of interesting piece of functionality. We might want to categorize these feature requests so different teams can respond to them appropriately. So again, I'm going to go into the data editor, and I'm going to add a new column. And this is, I think, our most important computation in Glide AI. It's called text to choice. And I think understanding how this works, it's a small, subtle feature, will change your perspective on how you could apply AI in your own problems. So in the text to choice component, we're going to give it as the input the feature request. We'll call this category. And I'm going to put the mic down again. So in this case, my hand is not a microphone. The instructions are, you are a product manager classifying customer requests. The input is the feature that the customer asked for. And then we give the AI a strict set of choices: security, data, GDPR, UX. Now it will go through the database and it will categorize every single request where it's able. Here it got a blank one, so maybe we should add a condition if you don't know, say other. So this is, we're going to improve the prompt a little bit as we audit the data and see where it failed and where it could be improved. I told it if you don't know, pick other, so we don't have any blanks. And if I go back into the layout, I'll say I want the meta label on all of these list items to be the category. Now, every single feature request is being categorized by this AI system. So my design team can focus on the UI UX. I go back to the front page, let's see. Xano, data, additional offline features, that's not quite UX, that's not right. I'm going to change this input again. I added a new category called general features as I'm going through and seeing, okay, it's using general features way too much. So in the instructions, what you would do as you tune these instructions to fit your use case, you would add more criteria explaining when to pick UX, when to pick design, when to pick data. I'm going to remove that choice because it's being abused. Andy, how much time do I have? 15 minutes, okay. So I'm going to take general features out. So I hope what you can see here is this is kind of a new style of programming. And these instructions that you're putting in are the AI version of code. So when you're programming with AI, I would argue that these AI systems are the first no-code programming languages. And they work not at the level of like arithmetic and computation, but at this reasoning level and human knowledge level. And an important caveat, I know you're all aware, these things make a lot of mistakes. So they can help you, but they do mess up. Computers are really good at arithmetic, and they rarely make mistakes. But these AI systems can make, they're just like people, they can make mistakes all the time. But, so yeah, you can see, okay, let's try to get one. Okay, data centers in Europe, annual plans and annual payments. I could add another category to classify things as payments. I'll do one more quick demo, and then we can do some questions. So in this case, we have some image recognition capabilities. So another thing that AI is great as is reaching into non-text information like audio, videos, and images, extracting text, and then you can use the tools for text reasoning to add classification. So we have this app where people are uploading images of packages that may or may not have been delivered. And we want the app to understand and classify these images as to whether they represent a successful delivery of a package or not. So I imagine in a conference full of no-coders, you wouldn't know how to go about programming this. And even expert programmers would usually not know how to accomplish this without AI. But let me show you how you could do it. So we have this just a table with one column, and these are the photos. If we can load them. So I'm going to add a Glide AI column. This is called image to text. So we're going to say, take the photo and describe. I'll call it description. Now, every single one of these photos is now turned into its text description. So here, this is the photo. Boxes in front of a green door and a brick wall. A pile of boxes outside a door, a cardboard box with tape on it, a close-up of a box, a close-up of a mat, a close-up of a green door. Now we have this text, and the problem is more tractable in text. So the next step, I'm going to make another AI column that's pointing at this one, building them on top of each other. This column is text to Boolean. Boolean is true or false. I'll call this delivered. The instructions I've already written. Based on a description of an image, can you determine if it mentions one or more packages being delivered in front of a door? I point at the description, and now it's just telling me true or false whether it thinks a package has been delivered. And then finally, I'm going to add an old-fashioned computational column, if then else, called status. And I'm just going to say, if delivered is checked, delivered. Else, not delivered. And I'm going to go back to my layout, and I'm going to say, group these items by their status. So now the AI is looking at the image, describing what it sees, and making a determination, true or false, has a package been delivered? And then it's splitting them in the interface to separate them. These ones, at a glance, you can say, okay, looks good, looks good. We need to see what happened in these cases. And if we upload a new image, this beautiful red door with no package in front of it. Not delivered. Okay, what do you guys think this one's going to be? So this is something that is a trivial task for people. You can say, look at this picture. Do you think a package has been delivered? Before these AI systems, it was very hard to program this. But you could see that not only did we do it today, we did it without any technical skills. You have to, Glide, you have to learn. It's a tool, but we're just typing in instructions of how we want this thing to behave, and it's working with images and text and classifying, categorizing, making judgments of whether things are true or false. So that's how Glide AI works. We made a playground. If you've ever seen OpenAI has a playground, even before they had ChatGPT, they had this developer portal where you could put instructions in, ask an AI to complete them. We've created an app built with Glide that has all the Glide AI features. Well, most of them. We're adding new ones. You can open this on your phone, and you can interact with all these use cases. And for each feature of Glide AI, generate text, we looked at text to Boolean, we looked at text to choice. There's different use cases that show you how you could apply that to your own problems. And then this little interactive thing where you can change the instructions, like I was changing in Glide, change the inputs, change the categories, and run it. And in case you can't scan this, it's playground.glide.page. Any questions about Glide AI?
Its software. And secondly, maybe in 1 year we won't use GPT 3.5, but GPT 5 or 6.0. So how are you ensuring there's a standardization of the output for me as a Glide customer?
Yeah. So like the rest of Glide, Glide AI is a high-level feature meant for non-technical people who don't understand the system. You present your employees or your customers this beautiful app where they can take a picture of a door that may or may not have a package in front of it. You instruct Glide AI in the way that I showed, and underneath we are using OpenAI for text models. We're also using a mix of other models for the different modalities. And we've already improved the image models out from underneath our beta customers without even announcing it. And we go through a verification process. We call this managed models. So you build your business software on top of this, and we have the enterprise relationship with OpenAI, and when they have a better model, it'll go through a testing phase, a beta phase. But once we validate it, it just ships, and your apps will improve in performance. So those instructions, the app would get better at determining whether or not a package had been delivered without you changing your Glide app at all, because we're managing the underlying models.
But that's not standardizing. If I'm relying on suddenly tomorrow there's an update, the output will be different than today, which is not necessarily what I want as a business.
Yeah, so we haven't totally determined how the beta process will work, but we have preview functionality in Glide. Generally, when we have a new capability available or an improvement, it's opt-in, and we go through a period of validation, both internally with our own test systems and getting customer feedback. So yeah, we wouldn't want, it's possible that a smarter model would make more mistakes in some domains, and it could cause a regression in the behavior of an app. We don't have the complete answer, but we do think that like the best situation for non-technical builders is a model that works like this.
You also mentioned that obviously there are still some mistakes, right? And some of the data points can be wrong. I would be interested whether you can share some best practices of how you ensure then the quality. Like, do you go through that step by step, like manually, or did you come up with a process for that?
Yeah, so I usually recommend you construct the app so that the AI is making a recommendation for the user of the app to either accept or reject or correct. It's pretty easy. In fact, Glide isn't powerful enough yet where that you could tell the system to go take actions based on these things without human intervention. Glide is still very much driven by people pressing things in the app. So yeah, I recommend you can say, you can structure in this way. The AI system thinks that this is the status of this customer's request. And then you could put a button for your own employees to say, approve or add correction. And then you could feed that information back into the system. The corrections can be used as new inputs to fine-tune those instructions. We can say, this thing keeps making mistakes when the door is red. for some reason. So you go into the instructions and you tell it more about red doors. Oh, sorry.
You were a bit quick on the use case, maybe about data or numbers themselves, because here most of what I see is what those models can process in terms of language and vision.
Yeah.
But if I'm asking them, like, I don't know, to extract data from a DB, filter, stuff like that, on which these models are not excellent,
Yeah.
how is it working? And also another thing about the app itself, maybe you can have a word about data visualization. Can it produce graphics or images or stuff like that?
So AI has interesting new capabilities for sort of qualitative explanation text generation. But these AIs are notoriously bad at doing calculations. So don't ask an AI to sum up these 1,000 figures for our business and I'm going to report the total to the government. It will probably make a mistake. We have some prototypes internally of usually what you do is you ask the AI to generate a database query rather than the answer. That's not part of what we've built so far.
And maybe for visualization, maybe,
right now the system just produces text and numbers and Booleans and dates. It doesn't produce anything visual yet.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. You show the image to text.
Yeah.
And do you have the same with image to image? For example, we have a thesaurus of images, for example, for product, and we have the technical on the market, and they scan or make a picture, and we want the good piece on it. Is it possible?
Not with the Glide AI yet. So you can add integrations. We have an OpenAI integration that can do image generation, but we don't have that built in yet for small technical reasons. In Glide, there's a system that checks when files, just to get into the details, it checks when your files aren't used anymore, so it can remove access and delete them. It's got a file collector, and we haven't made it compatible with AI yet.
Thank you.
Just a question.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm building an app for learning emergency procedures, and we actually use AI to generate quizzes. The thing is, I started with a prompt and copy-pasting JSON generated by AI.
Yeah.
And that was fine, because if he made a mistake, I could just tell him, no, that's not the right answer, you need to correct. As soon as I integrated with the API, it was more static, because I couldn't tell him, no, that's wrong, you need to correct. I could correct the answer, but it was a big JSON, so it was pretty complex to improve, to edit. How do you see this kind of correction with our API and with an integration with the AI?
So I think that's one important ability you get with a system like Glide is you are in control of what is presented to the user and what feedback is available and whether they accept or not. If you're just putting your employees, for example, inside of ChatGPT, you can't build a mechanism inside of ChatGPT for your whole company that understands that you're dealing with quizzes about emergency protocols and add an extra encouragement for the person to validate or ask their supervisor if the information is confusing or seems wrong. So you have full control in Glide over what you present and what warnings you put around it, how many levels of confirmation you ask from someone before the suggestion of the AI is committed to for everyone else in the company to see. So you would build those controls based on the knowledge of the sort of the sensitivity of your domain to whatever degree that you needed.
But can you, if he makes a mistake, you can't tell the AI back, yeah, that's wrong, you need to correct. So next time he does something that is more correct.
So that's what the instructions are for. The instructions are kind of the icing on the cake of the pre-trained model. So this, for example, GPT 3.5, the cutoff is like 2021. It knows everything on the internet that's public before 2021. If you needed to do quizzes about current events, you could put inside the instructions, which you could maintain in a table in Glide, for example, 1,000 facts that are important for your company, and those would enter into the context. So if it's making the wrong recommendation about how much exercise people should get or something, you would just put the correct fact in its repertoire inside the instructions, and then from then on it would get it right. So that's important. Build the initial version, scan through the data yourself and look for errors and add more context into the system to correct it, and then keep auditing it until you get an accuracy that is tolerable for your use case. If you're dealing with like emergencies, you want a high degree of accuracy. If it's a simple quiz about the cultural customs inside of your organization, you could probably tolerate some more wiggle room.
Thank you.
So what about data protection and privacy? I'm thinking of a use that could be very useful for many companies. So we have racing alerts, for example, for harassment or burnout or whatever. But those would be very sensitive information. What about privacy?
So the data, the privacy story is consistent with the rest of Glide's platform, and you can find that in our privacy center. With respect to the models, so for example, with OpenAI, we buy the enterprise agreement from OpenAI and provide it as our platform. And one of the guarantees they give you when you buy at that level, I think they give the same guarantee for ChatGPT, is they're not incorporating the data that you send through the system into their training. So it's not retained by them. And we add as a sub-processor OpenAI and the other model providers, so it's covered under sort of our umbrella compliance framework. So I think it's consistent with all the other features of Glide.
Thanks. Yeah, that was really interesting. Are there any limitations? Like, can you search and filter collections based on the computed columns? And is there any performance issues based on that for like large data sets? Is there any way around that by like using AI and actions to stamp that into tables?
So because Glide is meant for non-technical people, we try to do the performance reasoning for the user, and we try to fix that where we can. When we categorize those images by the conclusions of the AI, that was sorting and filtering the database because it was arranging them in order by that label that we calculated. And yeah, the more data you have and the more AI operations you stack, you'll add more latency, but that's where the caching comes in to try to give you the best possible performance. But ultimately, each AI calculation is, 200, 500 milliseconds making a request to a network. Even in the case of caching, it's making a network request. But yeah, something we're exploring in a popular use case with our customers has been having a table full of scanned manuals and then presenting a chat interface to their employees to say, what label do I need to look for on this air conditioning unit X1? And it will say, the label's on the right-hand side inside the electrical panel. Look for the blue star next to the most important information. And we have more work to do to extend those capabilities over sort of arbitrarily large tables. But I think next year at NoCodeConf, if we're talking about AI again, which I think we will be, I'm sure we will have extended those capabilities to millions of rows.
Hi. You spoke about modifying the prompt, obviously. So if you gave the example of the red door, it doesn't recognize it. You could change it at the prompt level. Can you also either fine-tune or augment the data at the training level? So let's say, I don't know, it's struggling to recognize the difference between a dog and a fox. There's only so much you could do at the prompt. You'd actually like to give it 20 new images to help it actually fine-tune the model. Is it possible to do that?
We don't support that. But you can always bring any AI provider via just like the generic API connector that Glide offers, like all of these other platforms. That's a pretty advanced use case that we haven't focused on first. But that potentially you could collect a table full of information and you could instruct the system to fine-tune one of the models based on the data you're storing in Glide. But we haven't looked at that yet.
Thank you for the presentation. Many promises I can see there, but I have a question regarding the LLM. You chose OpenAI. Did you had the opportunity to test Llama, for instance? And what were the results?
We didn't. I mean, we had the opportunity, but we didn't take it. We had just been prototyping with OpenAI internally, and our engineers are most familiar with how to use it, but we're very open-minded about switching to other models if we get better performance, better cost, better accuracy. So we don't have any like long-term commitments, but in general, the principle is identify the best up-to-date models for the use cases that we expose at a very high level, and switch them around with testing and validation with customers. We don't want to drastically change the mind of the software that you are trying to use within your company without oversight. But I can't imagine this will be OpenAI forever, especially as the open source models get better. We can host them ourselves.
Thank you.
Anyway, oh, go ahead.
Just another question. Can we have a word about your pricing model?
Sure. Oh, later. Yeah.
Is it by request, by each line of the data?
Yes, yeah. So there's a usage-based currency in Glide called updates. And with these prompt completions, they consume one update in most cases. But then they are cached, and the cache is free. So each unique circumstance that elicits a response from the AI would be one update every 30 days, shared across every user of the app. And you can see that, I'll just show you briefly right here. When you're adding these, so one that's more expensive is document to text. Turning a arbitrary Word, PowerPoint, Excel file, PDF to extract all of its text is a more expensive operation for us. You can see it costs 5. And I think, you know, our plans include like 1,000, and you can get more. So yeah, just to summarize, we didn't build any of these AI models. Those are provided by Azure and Google and OpenAI. But at Glide, we're trying to create powerful, easy-to-use, no-code tools that anyone in a business could apply. And this is still a little bit, these are new concepts that are hard to learn. We created the playground, lots of documentation and videos, but I hope from what you've seen today, you might have enough confidence to try this for yourself and see what you can build. I think in 15 minutes, you'll have some unique AI-powered app that you've built to start experimenting with. So I encourage you to do it as soon as possible. Thank you.